Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin with chapter 33, verse 5. Chapter 33, verse 5. Yaakov now meets up with Esav. In other words, all the gifts had come, and Yaakov still doesn't exactly know what he's going to find. And they fall on each other's necks, and Esav kisses Yaakov, and they cry. And Yaakov comes with his family. And verse 5, Vayishlach Esav lifts his eyes. Vayaris hanashim v'sayoladim. He sees the women, the children. Vayomer mi'elalach. He says, who are all these people that are connected to you? Vayomar. And Yaakov responds, Hayoladim, Asher Chanan Elokim Esavdecha. They are the children that God has given with mercy to your servant. Again, we see Yaakov is speaking with great humility to Esav. This is something we touched on earlier in the week. Really technical question. For some reason, it never occurred to me before, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe it's obvious to all of you. So it says Esav sees the women and children. He says, who are all these people to you? What are all these people's connection to you? And Yaakov responds, they're the children that God has provided to your servant. And what about the women? You know what I mean? In other words, just like there just seems to be something missing in the pasuk. This seems like the type of situation that if there was a husband giving this speech at a simcha or something, somebody would be like quietly elbowing him and saying, "Don't forget your wife." Like, why doesn't he mention the wives? So the Ramban says, Ramban on pasuk Hey, mi'elalach. Shoal al hanashim v'al hayoladim. Esav asked about the women and the children. V'ana hayoladim asher charanu l'kim esavdecha. And Yaakov's answer is only about the children. Derech musar. Ki lo ratza lomer shein nashav v'hevin Esav shein imos hayoladim. This is sort of like a tznius type of thing. Yaakov didn't want to talk about, that these women are my wives. He didn't want to talk. Again, it was the norm for the time, I guess, not to talk about the wives, in that kind of way. And it was obvious if these are the children, then obviously these are the wives that bore the children. But that's just I just thought the question was interesting. Okay, let's go on to verse 18. So Yaakov is finally done with all of this. If you see in verse 16, Esav went back on his path to Seir. Verse 17, Yaakov travels to Sukkos. He built a house for himself, and he made these huts for his livestock, and that's why the place is called Sukkos. And now verse 18. Vayavo Yaakov Shalem Ir Shechem Asher Beretz Canaan. Yaakov came complete. People were asking yesterday about, did Yaakov heal from the injury? So here it says Yaakov came complete. So Rashi, for example, says part of his coming complete means that he had been healed. So he came to the city of Shechem in Canaan. Padan Aram. He had come there from Padan Aram. Vayichan es pnei ha'ir, and he camped by the face of the city. Verse 19. Vayiken es chalkas hasadeh asher nata sham o'alo. He bought a portion of a field, and that was where he pitched his tent. Miad brei chamor avishchem, from the children of Chamor, b'meyak ksita, he paid 100 ksita for it. Verse 20, vayatzav sham mizbeach, he established an altar there, vayikra lo, and he called there, Kel Elokei Yisrael. And he called out, presumably in a public kind of way, that this altar is in honor of Hashem, the God of Israel. This series of psukim, really 17 through 20, seem exceedingly detailed. Feels like a lot more detailed than we normally get in the Chumash. It's hard to see what the relevance of any of this really is. Let's go to the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Yud Ches. Vayavo Yaakov Shalem miPadan Aram. Ka'omer l'chaveiro. Yatza ploni mibein shnei arayos, uva shalem. So he starts off by citing Rashi. It's like saying that someone just went between two lions and he survived the experience. Avkan vayavo Yaakov Shalem. So too, Yaakov now has come whole, meaning mi Lavan me Esav. He dealt with Lavan, check. He dealt with Esav, check, and he's still okay. That's what Rashi says. Avar Avram Piresh Shabbat B'Shalom, V'lo Eira Lo Shum Ora, Ki Ata Yochel Lisapir Ma'ora Dina. It's very interesting. The difference between Rashi and the Ibn Ezra is essentially, are we looking back or are we looking forward? So Rashi says Yaakov comes whole, that despite all the challenges that he's experienced, he's none the worse for wear. That's how Rashi explains it. The Ibn Ezra says something very different. What we're about to lead into, I don't know if we'll get to it today or tomorrow, God willing, but we're about to lead into the whole story with Dinah and Shem and the story with Yaakov's sons getting Dinah back. A terrible story. So the Ibn Ezra says, up until now, Yaakov hasn't had any real problems. There's been a lot of potential problems, but there hasn't been anything really. But now, wait till we tell you the next part of the story. That's how the Ibn Ezra explains it. Interesting. Further in the Ramban, Lefidati, but I think the pshat is Amra Kasuv came. Ki besukos hayim me Esav. Even though Esav went on his way, in verse 17, Yaakov is in the place called Sukkos, and he's still afraid of Esav. Ki Sukkos be'ever hayarden mizrach b'malchus Sichon. Sukkos is to the east in the area of, on the Transjordan, in the area where Sichon is. Okay. Va'ada Yosef Eretz Canaan lo shakat libo. Until Yaakov, we actually get back into the land of Israel. Remember, this whole time he's been going to get back to his parents. Until Yaakov would get back into the land of Israel, he's not really going to be feel secure. Ki oz yada shelo yigabo. Because then he knows once he's gotten into the land of Israel, he's safe. But even though officially he's parted ways with Esav, at any point Esav could just turn around and cause him terrible problems, kill him. Who knows? Aviv Karov Misham. Why is he safe once he gets into the land of Israel? Because he's not far from his father. Oh, Shias Ruan Sheyaretz. Or even if his father won't be able to help him, people of the land will be able to help him. Ki Aviv Nisia Lukim Besocham. Because Yitzchak is seen as a prominent personage in the land of Israel. Oh, Shizchus Aretz Tatzilei. Or maybe it's just the merit of being in the Holy Land of Israel, and that merit should protect him. But for one reason or another, whether it be proximity to Yitzchak, whether it be proximity to people who respect Yitzchak, whether it be just the sanctity of the land of Israel, Yaakov doesn't feel he can breathe easily until he gets into the land of Israel. Amar Ata Sheba Shalem El Eretz B'Gurei Aviv. So in 17 it said he was in Sukkos, but now in 18, when he gets into the land of Israel, it says that he's complete. Ki hitzilo Elokim baderech mikav kol oivav, because Hashem protected him on the path from all of his enemies. We're not comfortable saying that until he gets into the safe zone of the land of Israel. V'yamru b'bereishis Rabbah kol osar hachadashim shasi Yaakov Avinu basukos ha'imechabedis Esav ba'osu adaron yari misiore mimenu sham u'mishaleach lo ba'osu adaron b'chol chodesh v'chodesh. This is a fascinating medrash. The medrash says that when Yaakov is in Sukkos, he still pays homage to Esav. Because he's not far away from Esav. So medrash says, whether it be that he would give him a monthly set of gifts equaling the amount he gave him in this encounter, whether it be he gave him an annual set of gifts, until he crossed over into the land of Israel, he felt he was still under Esav's thumb. Very interesting thing to think about. Vayichan as Pnei Ha'ir, and he camped by the face of the city. What's that about? That was at the end of verse 18. Lo ratza lios achsanai be'ir. He did not want to be a guest in the city of Shechem. Avarotza shetia tchilas biyaso ba'aretz b'soch shalo. He wanted it to be that when he first came into the land of Israel, now when he comes to live in the land of Israel, he wants to be living in his own land. He doesn't want to be someone else's guest. So he just pitches camp in a field. That's what it means at the end of 18. He camped by the face of the city. Then the next thing he does is the beginning of verse 19. He buys a portion of land in that field. So he doesn't want to be anybody's guest. And once he just sets his things down, basically, he makes it his business to buy land in this open area because he wants to be living in his own property. He wants to take hold of the land of Israel. This is a very significant thing. For generations, the Jewish people are going to have a connection to the land of Israel. Like so many other things, according to the Ramban in this book, this act of camping in the field and buying the field is an illusion for the future. Ki hamakumahu yikavesh l'fanav tchila, because that is going to be the spot that's going to be conquered first. Terem horisho yoshviarz b'reizaro, before the other residents of the land are driven out from his family. So even this spot, that's the first spot that he comes to, is very relevant. But that's just how the Ramban pieces together these very technical psukim. Let's go to the Sforno. Sforno on Pasuk Yud Ches. Vayavo Yaakov Shalem Yirshchem. Takef Shegiya b'Shalom Beretz Canaan. Immediately upon entering the land of Canaan peacefully, Lo himtin Shegiya b'Veis Imo. He didn't wait to get back to his parents' house. Just want to explain what the Sforno was saying. After Yaakov has the dream, in last week's Parsha, he says, Vishavti v'shalom o beisavi. He makes a vow to God that if I come peacefully back to my father's house, v'ho'even azos asher samti matzeva, this stone that I placed as a monument, Yeh Beis Elokim, will be a place of God. What does he do in verse 20? He builds an altar and he calls out there, inviting people to come connect to God at his altar. Says the Sforno, this is an extremely relevant series of Psukim. So Ramban says it has to do with settling the land of Israel and being out of Esav's grasp. Sforno says the moment he gets back into the land of Israel, he feels he has a vow to fulfill. And so before even going to his parents, he builds an altar there. It's a very, very interesting thing to think about. Okay, fine. Let's go now to the beginning of chapter 34. Chapter 34, verse 1. So Yaakov is living in this area outside of the city of Shechem. He's built an altar there. He invites people to come and serve God. But Dinah bas Leah, asher yolda Yaakov. Dinah, the daughter of Leah, who had been born to Yaakov, goes out liros b'vnos haaretz, to see the women of the land. Verse 2, Vayaroscha osa Shechem ben Chamor achi b'nesi haaretz. Shechem sees her, Vayikach osa vayishkav osa vayaneha, and he takes her and he rapes her. So this is the story of Dinah, and we're going to see what the brothers do about it. Then he wants to marry her, by the way. We will talk more about this pasuk tomorrow. So we discussed this morning why Yaakov doesn't talk about his wives, and we discussed these seemingly mundane psukim, and whether it be having to do with Yaakov finally being safe and Yaakov establishing himself in the land of Israel, whether it be that Yaakov was fulfilling his vow. We had different pshatim of the Ramban and the Sforno.